Okay. Um, as we often start by grounding ourselves, which is hard to do in this virtual format. So let's take a moment to take 2 deep breaths together and reflect on our ties to this land we live on. I have the pleasure of sharing with you this photo I took just last Wednesday, right after the snow. This is from a western part of the county. As we look at this land, may we honor the people who lived on the land before the white settlers arrived. And in particular, I want to pay respects to the Ho-Chunk people who lived on this land for thousands of years. I wanted to share the name that they use for this land of the Four Lakes area. It's Teejop land. In 1832, they were forced to cede the land and were forcibly relocated to reservations in a number of other states, although many of them walked home to their homes here. Let's go to the next slide so I can give you a little preview of the evening. We do this partly so that those with speaking roles know roughly when they're coming up, although we never follow the timing exactly. But this is our welcome, and a little bit we'll greet each other in small breakouts. Then our main event is local governments leading the charge, and we're really excited that Kate Beaton can join us from Eau Claire, although she did not have to drive far this particular way we're doing things. And then be really exciting to get some updates on what's going on with the Line 3 pipeline resistance, the Line 5 pipeline resistance. And we do have an action plan that you can do during the meeting, near the end of the meeting. We also have a little bit from climate justice and a little bit of exciting things that are happening in January we want to make sure you know about. We're going to turn it over to Susan Millar. She's one of the co-leads of our community climate solutions team, also known as the CCS team, and she'll introduce our speaker for this evening. Take it away, Susan.
Thank you, and I am delighted to introduce Kate Beaton. Kate is a member of the, let's see what happened to my machine. There we go. Kate is a member of the Eau Claire City Council, and she was a co-sponsor of Eau Claire's commitment to 100% renewable energy by 2050. In her day job, she works with the Wisconsin Conservative Voters, and she's the Western organizer with Wisconsin Conservation Voters. And there she leads the effort in Western Wisconsin to empower local communities to set and achieve their clean energy goals. And I can tell you, based on the meeting I had with her before this meeting, that she rocks. So take it away, Kate.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Susan, and thank you all for having me. I'm going to share my screen. I have a set of slides to share with you today. All right. Does that look okay with everyone? Okay, great. Yeah, like Susan said, I am Kate Beaton. I work for Wisconsin Conservation Voters. I think you said it conservation one time and conservative one time, and it's a very common mistake, but I just want to be clear that it's conservation voters. We're nonpartisan, and we're a nonprofit based in Madison and work throughout Wisconsin. I am also an Eau Claire City Council member, and my journey on local clean energy policy really, of course, I've been, a long time climate advocate and climate enthusiast, but my journey really on this specific topic started in 2017 when Donald Trump had declared that that he would pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord. I was 25. I had recently been elected to the city council, and I remember I was driving through the farmland in western Wisconsin, and it was pouring rain. And I was sitting there thinking, I was on my way to an event, and I was thinking, I am watching the dismantling of like really pretty weak action as it is to address climate change globally. And I was driving through a storm that would flood out the fields, and was a direct, indicator of climate change. So, both of those things were happening at the same time, and it was so frustrating to me. And I started to think about what power I had to really make an impact. I felt like I didn't have the power to, change Donald Trump's mind, but what power I did have was a really small piece of the pie, a really small but important piece of the pie at the city of Eau Claire level. And so I started doing a little bit of research, and found that actually 1 in 3 at this point right now, 1 in 3 Americans are actually represented by governmental bodies that have made a commitment to 100% clean energy by 2050. Those are, cities like Eau Claire, school boards, universities, counties, and in some cases there's states as well. And this number has actually grown. Now it's 1 in 3. When I started back in 2017, it was 1 in 4. And so this was really encouraging me to think about, I only have this small piece of my little pie here in Eau Claire, but it's really contributing to a larger movement of local leaders who are deciding to stop waiting for our federal and global, and in Wisconsin's case, our state leaders to do something about climate change and to do something to protect our future, and deciding to really take that into our own hands. And so I had introduced a policy in the city of Eau Claire to commit to 100% clean energy, and have been working as a local elected leader, but also as a member of the Eau Claire City Council to and an organizer with Wisconsin Conservation Voters to encourage other local elected officials to make the same commitment. I think broadly across the board, for the most part, local elected leaders just need the information and a little bit of nudging, and to see that this is both a good environmental and social decision to make, but also a good financial decision to make for their city. And so we've been able to get a number of communities committed to 100% clean energy, like the city of Menominee, the city of Green Bay, La Crosse County, and certainly adding to the list of the communities who are really taking that initiative themselves as well. So this is a list of communities that Wisconsin Conservation Voters has worked in, and communities that were really sort of the first to tackle this issue on their own. Certainly understand that there might be other communities that aren't on this list, and so, but I just wanted to show that this is certainly a growing trend in Wisconsin. Here in Eau Claire, I wanted to share our timeline. Like I said, we made our commitment in 2017, but that really wasn't the start of it. Our Eau Claire's clean energy and sustainability journey started long ago, before I was elected. It really started when citizens, part of groups like 350 Madison were communicating to city leadership and the city manager that action is really needed. And so that really started. Luckily, we had a city manager who listened to that, and it's really started this whole waterfall of really important steps that happened. One important thing that we started all the way back in 2009 was collecting an energy inventory statewide. That is to, or citywide rather, that was to really see how much energy we're using now so that we know how far we have to go. We created a citizen advisory committee, set our goal for 100% clean energy. And here in just earlier this year in 2020, we completed our renewable energy action plan. So a lot of other really important steps that happened in between there that I don't have time to talk about, but would be happy to talk with you more either in our breakout session later or offline. I'll be sharing my email at the end of this presentation. So the Eau Claire Renewable Energy Action Plan is really the, I would say the most important thing that has come that has come to our city since 2007 when we really started this journey. The Renewable Energy Action Plan is made up of 4 documents. There's the main action plan there on the left, but then there's 3 other documents that make up the full plan. The plan was funded with a grant from the Public Service Commission, and it was facilitated, our process was facilitated by the Xcel Energy Partners and Energy Program. I want to recognize that you may be raising your eyebrow to think that the Xcel Energy utility facilitated our clean energy process, and I did too when we started. But Xcel is considered one of the leading energy utilities in clean energy and sustainability in the country, and they've actually set their own 100% clean electricity goal by 2050 as well. That not to say that they're perfect, but being such a good partner already, I think it was important for us that the utility having such an important role in our energy usage, that they be a direct partner in the creation of this plan. So the committee, this grant process called for a committee of community members to actually create this plan and create the vision, all the way from the vision and strategic goals to specific metrics and specific tactics to be used. So the committee was almost 50 people. It was made up of elected officials. I was on that committee, people from the schools and from, higher education and K through 12, labor unions, environmental activists from the healthcare industry in Eau Claire, our transportation sector, so the transit system, but also our car dealerships, energy utilities, major companies and major utility customers, right? As well as waste management. And we had 5 committee meetings over 7 months to create the plan. We used equity and inclusiveness as our guiding principle, our number 1 guiding principle, recognizing that climate change and all the effects of climate change impact people disproportionately, that the fact that those people are being impacted disproportionately calls for us to act in ways that will benefit all people and not leave anybody out, and actually will also not, the actions that we're taking won't accidentally harm any people in the process either. And put those people who are being impacted directly at the front line of the solutions. We wanted to use economic development and ecosystem stewardship as well as a guiding principle. And our outcome was a 10-year plan, so 2020 to 2030, recognizing that we hope we're relying on a dramatic progression of technology to help us get to our goal over the next 30 years. And after 10 years, we expect this plan to be updated with those new technology advances. So this plan is only for 10 years and will need to be updated in 2030. It was 350 pages long and has additional appendices with a vehicle roadmap, solar ready guidelines, net zero energy building guide as well. The categories included biodiversity, residential, transportation, waste, commercial, industrial, institutional. Our goal for 100% clean energy was laid out sort of incrementally. And so at 2030, you'll see there at the top, we're expecting a 25% drop in our energy usage since our 2010 baseline. I believe it's 2010. I'm not entirely sure on that. I'd have to look at that again. So we're hoping to ramp up our efforts as we get better at this and as technology advances. And then the graph below shows our expected decrease in the different categories of our energy usage. This graph is a helpful reminder that our goals are meant for the entire community. You'll see residential there, you'll see businesses, that sort of thing. And so transportation, so it's not just the community, the city organizational energy usage, but all energy used within the bounds of the city. So here, I would really encourage you to read the Eau Claire if this is something that really is interesting to you and you're hoping to push this in your own city. I would encourage you to read or glance at the Eau Claire Renewable Energy Action Plan. But I did pull out a few policy samples to give you an idea of the kinds of things that are in there. All of the policies are categorized under those 5 categories that I read before. Under biodiversity, an example would be requiring natural space in each new development. So as it stands right now, there's no requirement for, like shrubbery or grass or trees. And so this would require 5% for residential and 10% for non-residential. For the residential category, pass a home energy rating ordinance to give homeowners and also renters an idea of their home energy, the efficiency of their home before they move in and before they make a decision about their home. I just purchased a home in 2018 and it basically had no insulation, like literally no insulation. And so I would have loved to have known a little bit more about that when I bought my house. Luckily, it has sufficient insulation in the attic now. In the transportation category, requiring electric vehicle parking in public parking areas. So in city-owned parking, but also in privately owned parking areas. In the waste category, working with our haulers to create a composting program. We have one hauler in Eau Claire that already does offer composting, but I think we have like 7 or 8 other haulers that don't offer that program. So working with those haulers to offer that. And then in commercial, industrial, and institutional, increasing education and use of our net zero building guide. So those are just a couple examples of what the plan is calling for. I want to recognize too that there are a lot of things in the guide, in the Renewable Energy Action Plan that require state fund or a city funding, which can be really hard for cities, especially smaller cities that have a lower budget, and especially during a year like 2021, where cities are facing major budgetary deficits due to COVID-19. But I wanted to recognize that these policies largely don't require any budgetary impact. They require staff time and certainly money, associated with staff time, but they don't require any public funding to get these done, which is a good thing. And so I have heard that a lot of the communities where you all live have already made a plan or made a goal to achieve 100% clean energy by 2050. And so I really wanted to spend my time on the Renewable Energy Action Plan, that next step after setting your goal. But I did want to, in case any of you are living in a community where that has not yet been achieved, I just wanted to really, really briefly touch on sort of the process for how this all happens, and to really bring a focus to the importance of organizing and mobilizing throughout the process. So it really starts with community education, doing things like this meeting, and making sure that these meetings are being seen by community leaders. So that we're not doing this sort of unintentionally secretly, right? We want our community leaders to understand that there's a growing interest in this sort of thing. We want to be organizing in order to set our goal. You want to organize and mobilize in order to create action planning processes, and organizing and mobilizing have to happen for city leaders to follow through with the plan so that it doesn't just sit on a shelf and gather dust. And so that, once you set your goal, that's really only the beginning. The organizing and mobilizing do not stop there. In order to, these are just a few quick tips for how to think about the next steps after a goal is set, and how to think about where you want to spend your organizing power. You want to be developing good relationships with your local elected officials or municipal staff. Most likely their staff are in the planning department, and often, especially in a larger city, there are staff members that are dedicated specifically to sustainability. They have a lot of power along with the local elected officials, so don't forget them. Don't let your local elected officials forget about what they've promised to you if they've set this goal already. I think especially now it's easy for a local elected official to get it caught up on other really important issues like COVID and policing and racial justice, and I think that just develop that good relationship with them, and assume best intent, and just remind them if they need a reminder. Also ask them what the municipality is doing to achieve the goals. I think often this work does happen, and we don't always see that it's happening, and the elected official might not even see. And so it might be a good opportunity for them to ask the staff what about updates that have been happening. You should also, in your relationship with your elected official, help them understand what is the next step. I think that a lot of local elected officials, they share this value, but they're not experts in clean energy. I'm guessing that all of you probably are more experts than a lot of your local elected officials on clean energy. And so help them understand what those next steps are. Energy inventories are really key to the next step after a goal setting process. That's really like seeing how much energy we're using now and how much we have to cut in order to achieve the goal. Consulted planning processes are recommended. I really can't emphasize this enough, that going through a process with a professional to create a plan will result in a higher quality plan that is used more efficiently. A permanent community-led committee with citizens from the community to sustain ongoing progress is a great idea as well. So we have a sustainability committee that meets every month in Eau Claire. And then lastly, the Wisconsin Conservation Voters, the Sierra Club, and Renew Wisconsin just this year created the Clean Energy Toolkit. You can find it online, and it is a toolkit specifically for local governments to to use to achieve their goals. So sharing that with your local elected official could be a good idea as well. Lastly, pay attention to who is at the decision table. Democracy is on your side here. If you are, going through this process of, trying to establish a good relationship with your local elected official, and trying to hold them accountable to what they've promised you, remember that you can always, find somebody who will uphold that promise. And I think that the power, especially on the local level, of the election, to hold elected officials accountable to these really important decisions, is really underutilized, I think. Lastly, especially when talking with your elected official, but also with anybody in the community, consider who you're talking to. Consider your audience when you're talking about clean energy. When it comes to clean energy, we luckily have so much on our side with, with the environment, with our health, how it affects our health, but also the finances of clean energy, and its impacts on tourism, and the things that, people who don't always share our values do care about. And so consider that when you're talking about clean energy. I think it can be easy to come in, kind of hot and talking about climate change, and those things are really important. But sometimes, I think this in a certain room, to fight climate change, we actually have to avoid talking about it. We can achieve that progress without using those words in certain rooms. So that is all I have. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. I will be sharing these slides with the event organizers, so you'll have my email addresses, but I will stop sharing my screen and open it up for questions.
So Julia, how many minutes do we have for questions?
We have till about 8 minutes.
About 8 minutes. Okay. Well, there are a lot of questions here. I'm going to start by asking you to go back, if you would, Kate, to the slide where you were talking about the various policies that Eau Claire has put in place at the city level. And there were a couple of questions about just how does the city of Eau Claire actually go about implementing those? Do you use incentives? Do you use penalties? What happens if people, businesses or citizens say, no, I don't want to do that?
Yeah, so a lot of the policies that I put up on the screen are policies related to new construction, which is going to happen, either way. And in those cases, a builder would not be able to build their project unless they followed our sustainability guidelines. So I think that those are those policies are really the most powerful ones that are really just baked into how our city functions. It's not negotiable. I think that realistically, there are a lot of good incentive programs that the city can use that do take money. That can be prohibitive for some of the, a smaller community with less money. In a political, to be politically realistic, I think a lot of times penalties just aren't viable, unfortunately. At least right now, maybe in 2030, if and when, depending on how bad it gets, we'll see that a penalty is a little bit more politically palatable for the community. So I think it depends on the policy, but I think it's my preference that we create policies that are that really are just it's just how our city works now. It's not really something that can be negotiated.
So are you talking a culture change there, or because this links into another couple of questions that came in about how the state's standards for building codes are much lower than, for example, your policies presumably are. Mm-hmm. And so how do you handle that disjunction between what the what builders are actually required to do and what you want them to do.
Yeah, so in the case of a naturalized space requirement, you know, a builder would come to the city and say, I want to build this house on this land. And if they don't meet that requirement for naturalized space, they can't build. That's the sort of non-negotiable sort of policy that I'm talking about. As it stands right now, I believe the state building requirements, they provide a like the cities can be more progressive when it comes to building codes. I believe it's not the case for a lot of things. The cities provide you know, a floor rather than a ceiling when it comes to environmental codes often, especially like, you know, clean water policies and that sort of thing. So any of that could change at any time, where, you know, a city would have to follow the state codes more strictly. But as far as I understand it, you know, these are policies that the state would allow us to make, that wouldn't be a state law, but just an Eau Claire law. Does that make sense?
Well, it's tricky. We're still struggling with that here in Madison, but we can, let me get on to a couple of other questions. Well, could you identify, this is a question of Don's, would you, are Eau Claire's biggest challenges in achieving these goals that you've identified? Is it financial? Yeah. Is it, I mean, what is the,
yeah,
where do you see the biggest issue?
I think it's definitely financial. Eau Claire commits a lot of resources to sustainability. We have a full-time paid planner who commits his time to sustainability and carrying through the goals of this plan. But even still, there's way more work that needs to be done that he has the capacity to do. And so I think it's largely staff time, because that's an ongoing expense that would have to be paid every single year. But it's also, there's a lot that the city could do if we had, you know, a pot of millions of dollars to spend towards like incentives, particularly, and also creating our own, you know, clean energy infrastructure, you know, potentially in partnership with Excel. We could do so much that it's really endless what we could do. And I think the thing that hurts me the most is that we could put that money towards tactics that would save us money and would pay themselves off in the long run, but we just don't have that now. And so that's certainly our largest challenge. And I think a big challenge for all communities in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think I'll probably have to end with this next question. It's two questions kind of related. Early on, you mentioned how Eau Claire had begun its energy inventory citywide in 2009. And someone mentioned, well, you didn't mention anything about energy benchmarking. And I think actually that was a statement about energy benchmarking. I just wanted to highlight that. But I think what's following that is another question that came in early about, do you really believe that you're going to be able to achieve 100% your 100% energy goal by 2050? And that's hooked in with that benchmarking thing. I want to say that one of the things I've been very, very impressed by on the UW Eau Claire website is how you have annual reports that show how much things have changed since the last year. The only way you can do that, of course, is to have that data. And are you quite confident that you're going to be able to do it?
I get this question a lot from groups like this, but also from elected officials. So I think it's a really, really important question to ask. And my answer is two-parted. So if I had all the resources and time in the world today to transition to 100% clean energy across the whole community, I don't think that we could do that. It's because I don't think that the technology exists to do that. We're talking like, can you imagine like electric snow plows? Like, I don't know if those even exist. And and so there are things that I think that technology just hasn't caught up to that yet. But when you think about how much technology has progressed in the last 10 years, even in the last 5 years or 2 years, it's just growing. It's getting exponentially faster, and I just have to put my faith in the technology to advance to a place that will get us there. I like to highlight that Xcel Energy has created their 100% goal, but they only know how they're going to get to 80%. They know exactly how they're going to get to 80%, but as this 8-state, they have a jurisdiction across 8 states. They're this huge corporation. Even they are putting their faith in technology to progress to get them there as well. And so so I think that we can do the same thing. If Xcel can, we can. But I think also we have to be mindful that even if we are don't exactly know how we're going to get there, that can't let us, that we can't let that stop us from trying, because any progress is going to be better than no progress. And so even if we only get to, if we get to 2050 and we're only at 60% or 80%, that is still a huge win. And it's still a win that we can build off of for progress beyond that. And so, so I think that, that's a really compelling question that comes up a lot. And I think, but it's a really important one to really nip in the bud early on, because that's not something that we can let us stand in our way. It's just too important.
So Julia has given me permission to ask one more question. I'm going to ask my question.
Susan, sorry. That was
No?
short. We're a little bit, we're short on time at this point.
I no longer have it.
I'll be staying behind in the breakout session. So anybody who didn't get a question answered, then we can have another conversation. So.
Yeah, there are a lot more questions, and yes, that'll be great. Thanks so much, Kate.
Yeah, can everyone thank Kate? It's just wonderful to hear this. Thank you so much. And we know we can't get to all the questions, although Susan did a great job of pulling out some of the key ones. So we will have an optional breakout for those that want further Q&A. But we're going to shift gears because, we have our different teams doing different actions and different focuses. And we want to now hear from Phyllis sharing the pipeline resistance updates. And we've sort of paired the tar sands team, which Phyllis represents, and the Divest and Defund team, both teams working on stopping some of this pipeline construction. Go ahead,
Thank
Phyllis.
you. Thanks. So as you know, our tar sands team fights oil pipelines in the Midwest, and one of our members, Mira Grinsfelder, took a bold action on November 18th to stop Line 3. And after my update, she'll tell us why she did it and what it was like. Next. In the past few months, 2 Democratic Midwestern governors have taken 2 different paths on oil pipelines. Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer ordered Line 5 removed from the Straits of Mackinac with a deadline of May 12th to stop the flow of oil. Meanwhile, Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz did the opposite. In defiance of the recommendations of the administrative law judge who heard so much testimony, of his own Department of Commerce, of his own Lieutenant Governor, he approved the new Line 3, which would ravage Minnesota's forests, streams, wild rice, and indigenous rights. The question for us is, which path will Governor Tony Evers take on the Line 5 reroute? Next. I'll start with an update on that reroute, which is a proposed new 42-mile stretch of the existing Line 5 crude oil pipeline, which would go around the edge of the Bad River Reservation, which lies on the southern shore of Lake Superior. Enbridge hopes to build it in 2021, but there is huge public opposition to the reroute, and we need to make it more obvious. We had a great showing of that opposition on July 1st, when over 800 people attended the virtual hearing on Enbridge's permit application to the Department of Natural Resources. Now we need to increase participation at the hearing predicted for early 2021 after the draft EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, is released. And that means getting more people all across the state to pressure the Evers administration to follow the path of Governor Whitmer and not of Governor Walz. Next. To that end, the Line 5 Coalition, of which we are a part, has launched the Superior Water Story Corps to gather and publish stories and poems of residents and visitors to the area around Lake Superior's southern shore. By reminding people of how much the threatened environment enriches their lives, we hope to increase activism against Line 5. So if you have lived or stayed there, you can submit something. And if not, you can help bring our ambitious plans to life. Next. This is an example of a great infographic showing all the times that Line 5 has already ruptured and leaked. The Line 5 Coalition's Media Working Group is launching a project to take the excellent but quite technical expert testimony submitted to the DNR on July 1st, turn it into common language, and then create infographics that will be easily understood for wide distribution. So if you are a writer, a digital artist, or a project manager, we need your help. Next. The very next day after Minnesota Governor Tim Walz approved Line 3 to cross Minnesota, Enbridge started destroying huge swaths of forest to make way for it. Many tribes and organizations have filed lawsuits with powerful legal arguments, but Enbridge is rushing to complete all the water crossings before those cases can be heard. Our side has asked for stays to stop any construction until the cases are heard, but the judges haven't ruled yet. At this point, the only way to stop the completion of Line 3 is a combination of legal means and direct action, and we are asking you to support both struggles. Next. A really easy way to help is to donate to the Friends of the Headwaters, a small but mighty group that is fighting Line 3 in the courts and needs to raise $100,000 for their current lawsuit, which has a great chance of winning. I'm on the phone once a week with Midwest groups fighting tar sands pipelines, and when I heard that the volunteers of this group are dipping into their retirement savings to keep the lawsuit going, I said, we have got to do something to help them. Because after all, Wisconsin is downstream from Minnesota in rivers and in pipelines. And if we want to stop a Line 66 from coming through Wisconsin and Dane County, we need to stop Line 3, which would bring 540,000 more barrels per day of tar sands oil into Superior, Wisconsin. Next. Lastly, I want to remind you of the material aid drive that we are doing to support those fighting Line 3 in Minnesota. This picture shows one of our tar sands team members, Mira Grinsfelder, locked down to an Enbridge excavator on November 18th. She and her fellow activists stopped work at a pump station for a whole day. It's these kind of actions that can slow down Enbridge's rampage of destruction and give the lawsuits a chance to nullify the permits. There are scores or maybe hundreds of people living outside in a Minnesota winter during a pandemic, risking everything to stop this tar sands pipeline. And the least we can do is to support them. We sent out an email about this on January 2nd, and you can read it at tinyurl.com/materialaidemail. We are sending up a carload of things tomorrow with Tom Hildebrandt, and we can send more with Mira in a couple of weeks. And in the email, you'll find the list of things that the water protectors are asking for. So let us know at tarsandsteam@gmail.com if you have something to contribute. And you can also buy and donate gift cards, and all the information about how to do it is in that email too. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mira. Thank you.
I know Mira had a couple of conflicting meetings. Mira, are you still on?
She was at the beginning, but I don't
Right,
know
and
about
then
now.
she sent a chat saying she might have to go. Well, if she comes back, we'll pause to hear from her.
Okay.
So now I'm thrown off. I think what we're going to do, well, you can see her quote. We wanted you to hear her speak directly, but we do have her quote on this slide. And there's more about her in the email Phyllis is referring to, and we put the link to that in the chat. I think what we'll do now is move ahead with our digital takeover. Katie, do you want to have us advance the slides, or do you want to share your screen and have you advance the slides?
If you could do the slides, I'll take it over when I start demonstrating how to do the takeover.
Okay, so there's many ways to stop pipelines, and I appreciate Phyllis emphasizing the legal actions and the direct resistance, and there's also trying to stop the funding going to the pipeline. So take it away, Katie.
All right. If you were at our meeting a few months ago, you might recognize this slide and my voice. My name is Katie Reynolds, and I'm here from the Divest and Defund group. I'm here to take us through another digital action we can take tonight against Chase Bank, one of the largest funders of climate destruction and pipelines like we had just heard about. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide. So what is a digital takeover? You might remember we define it as a storm of online reviews intended to put pressure on a business to change their practices and to inform anyone who sees their pages about their practices. So we did this before in September via Google Maps reviews of different Chase branches. And we have in fact seen a lot of impact from those in terms of people who have seen them and therefore have learned potentially about Chase's actions to fund fossil fuels. So you can go ahead and flip to the next slide. So this is one of our most popular reviews from that action. This is Julia's review on one of the Chase Bank branches. And that's an actual photo of one of our in-person actions against Chase. And you can see that it's gotten a lot of views. So over 500 people saw the review, but even more than that, about 23,000 people saw the image. So you can see that we're really getting our message out there and having an impact, especially by the ones with images. And you can go to the next slide. We've also managed to turn Wisconsin green on the Stop the Money Pipeline map. So this is a representation of how many of the branches in any given state has reviews from the Stop the Money Pipeline action that we participated in. Go ahead and flip to the next slide. And we've actually managed to lower the star rating of several Chase banks in Wisconsin. So this is a picture of some of the ones downtown where we've got them down to 2 or 3 stars, which might make people curious enough to go and poke around and see who left those negative reviews. Okay, and last slide. This is a great picture of our fellow 350 Madison member, Tom Hildebrand. He is actually, as Phyllis mentioned, driving tomorrow to Palisade, Minnesota to participate in direct action in the resistance against Line 3. So I think this might be a good place to pause, and if Tom's on the line, have everyone unmute and send him some well wishes.
let's take down the slide temporarily. And Mira actually just joined us too. Tom, can you say hello so we can see your face, or maybe you're hidden in the camera?
Maybe he's on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Tom.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hello.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank
Okay.
you, Tom.
Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you. Thank you very much. Stay
you're
safe.
welcome. You're welcome.
Be safe and well and rabble rouse.
Okay. Well, we'll see what I can do.
And while we're paused, I see that Mira has joined us again. Mira, it would be nice. Tom's heading there tomorrow, but I understand you were there November 18th. Can you just say a word or two about why you went, what it was like? I know you can't say, just tell us a little bit. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. A big reason I'm involved in Madison 350 is because I hail from Minnesota and was like acutely aware of how Enbridge was taking advantage of communities there. And when I moved to Madison, was looking for ways to be involved adjacently or directly in Minnesota. And I reached out to Phyllis and was like, Phyllis, I hate this company. They're hurting people in my home place, and they're hurting people in this home place too. I learned, and the deeper I've learned about Line 5 and about Enbridge and Line 3 and just how close these two campaigns really are, and realizing, whoa, with what's happening locally around Line 5 and there being a felony trespassing bill, this is an opportunity to really stick it to this company, and an opportunity where the resistance there has just been beautiful and mounting, and it was like an honor to be able to show up and continue showing up with those people. So yeah, in November, me and another friend shut it down for a day. We locked ourselves to an excavator when Enbridge was doing construction before they had the permits to even be doing that construction. It was a pump station that they have to build to pump this disgusting tar sandy liquid through. And now people, where Tom's going, people are holding it down at the crossing where they're trying to bore underneath the Mississippi River, which, touches so many people across this entire Turtle Island land. So just feeling really connected to communities near and far in this battle. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mira. It's just thank you for everything you're doing and sharing a little bit with us. I know that that we're just moved by what you did, and excited that you're going back, and that Tom is driving. I think he's in Madison, well, Fitchburg, sort of on his way, and has a long drive tomorrow. So, thank you. I think we'll shift gears back. Thank you, Katie, for interrupting so that we could sort of see Tom and Mira. And I think some of us wish we could join them. And there are ways to act from your own TV screen if you are not quite ready to go up to Minnesota yet.
Thank you, and thank you, Tom and Mira, again for your action. I think, Julia, if you want to share your slides, or you know what, I can just take it from here, and demonstrate how to leave another review for Chase. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Got a thumbs up? Great. Okay. So if you do have a minute, I'm going to demonstrate it once, and then in the interest of time, we're going to move forward, but you can take those same steps to leave your own review afterwards. If you want, you can try to follow along, but I know that if you're like me, it's a little bit hard to do two at once. So I'm going to, first you would go to this URL. So it's stopthemoneypipeline.com/takeover-chase. And this is the same site that we have used before. We're going to keep trying to turn Wisconsin greener. And you'll use the map to find a Chase Bank branch to review. So you might do Wisconsin, or if you have a connection to another state, maybe our neighbors in Minnesota or Michigan, feel free to do that as well. That will open up Google Maps. And from here, you can choose a branch. So I'm going to pick up our northernmost branch. And there are directions back on the website about what kinds of things you can leave in your review. So there's some facts, sample reviews, and images you can use. Also feel free, if you have some of our images of actual demonstrations in front of our banks, we found those to be especially effective, like we've seen with Julia's review. But I'm going to go ahead and just use this picture, and I'll save it to my desktop where everything goes. And then I will leave a review once I've clicked on the Chase Bank in Google Maps, scrolling down until I get to the reviews, and then clicking write a review. Go ahead and leave a star rating. And in order to upload the picture, you would find where you saved it. And then leave a review. And I'm going to keep refining this, but from here you would click post. That would put your review out on the Chase Bank branch. And then a very important part here is to go back to the Stop the Money Pipeline website and tell them that you left a review. So you would say, I left one review on Google Maps. We didn't do Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. You would document your name and your email. Whether you wanted to keep up to date about Stop the Money Pipeline's campaigns, and then you would submit your reviews. Yeah. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to Julia so that we can move into our breakouts. But I will do one last plug for the Divest and Defund breakout. We're meeting right after this, and as just a little bit of a teaser, we've got more actions coming. So if you potentially would have some time free on Saturday mornings in the future and you want to participate either virtually or in person, and you want to hear more, the Divest and Defund breakout is a good place to go after this. All right.
Thanks, Katie. And we were going to play music and give you 4 minutes to do it, but there are all these good things we want to talk about, and so the time is getting late. So thank you, Katie, for being so flexible. I think so what we are saving time for is we are going to hear, I think it's the climate justice video. We have so many teams that are doing great work. Our climate justice team is going to bring us a short video, keeping us an aspect of climate justice. Who is introducing this, Marion or Tanis?
Yeah, I am. And do we have the slide? It's a three or 4 minute video, and we just want you to watch it with us and learn about the effects of climate change and justice in our own state. This is a PBS video, and we're very proud to show you this one, and perhaps we'll be watching some more PBS climate videos in the future.
Neighborhoods are ovens with windows. And as the knob on global warming increases, lives are preheated until a soul souffles. Pancake stack projects are poured over with a humid as thick as molasses. Heat and humidity are the perfect appetizer on death's plate. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet from May to October, and senior citizen discount is every day. If thermometers can measure temperatures, they should be able to measure human anxiety. As the temperature rises, we reach boiling points. Attitudes of those around us rise quicker than mercury, and the pressure of staying cool causes us to explode. Compressed living complexes circulate heat and cause compressed feelings to converge upon our neighbors in the hood. So that 90% release of excess body heat talked about in science class is contributed to our local temperature rising. We crack open fire hydrants until we hear lights crying, raising taxes by lowering our body temperature. And if you couldn't afford a wind replacer, fridges and freezers were propped open until your two brothers' faces are frozen. Audiences applaud the ice cream man once that familiar jingle mingles with our ears. This sweet release of flooded heat is a godsend. But what do you know? The ice cream vendor's name is Noah. As the temperature rises, so do attitudes, death rates, bills, and ice cream stocks. Heat affects the elderly more than it does us. Their lungs resemble the Dow Exchange, rises and drops until they crash. Ambulances are summoned, riding down the street flooded with the contents of the only fire hydrant. We have only just begun to fry.
Thank you. That's all we have. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Marion. If people, I'm going to quickly mention before we wrap up and let people do breakouts, is that as you can see, we have a lot of teams doing a lot of things. We can't get everything done in just one public meeting. So you'd be welcome to join any of our teams. This shows that Wednesday night is the meeting of the climate justice team. It's not too late to get a link to join that. Next slide. Our community action team meets third Mondays, and there's the information if you want to ask to join that. Susan Millar did such a great job finding and identifying a great speaker of Kate and introducing her. She's one of the co-leads of the Community Climate Solutions team. I mean, that was the main focus of tonight's presentation. And so if you're interested, there will be a breakout in just a few minutes, but there also are ongoing meetings with the Community Climate Solutions team, and you'd be very welcome at those. Next slide. Divest and Defund team, Katie Reynolds, was talking about the work. And on the chat, Seth, we ran out of time. I actually put a review up on Tom's bank, since Tom is our hero right now. And he also has been standing outside his bank with a divest fund sign. So if, in the chat, if you go to that Google thing, you can like my review. The tar sands team, well, you've heard from Phyllis, all the work they're doing. They would love to have more people help out with that work. So you can contact Phyllis to find out about their next meeting or to get on their mailing list. Next. In the interests of, oh, this one, Marion, I think we have this link. The City of Middleton that Marion can put in the chat. There's a public hearing on the draft City of Middleton Comprehensive Plan, Tuesday, January 21st. Did you want to say anything, Kermit, quickly? Or is it?
Yeah,
go ahead.
quickly, just that the plan includes a big Green Cities chapter and a lot of sustainability provisions that help address climate change. So positive, encouraging input is always helpful to give people in leadership a sense that there's political cover for taking bold action.
Thank you, Kermit. And I did click on that link, and all that information about when and where, it's all there at that link, which is now in the chat. Or you can go to the City of Middleton. Kermit, this is you also.
Yeah, it's happening this week, Project Drawdown. It's a free conference for the second part of it that focuses on the work of the nonprofit group that's trying to help the world reach a future point in time where levels of greenhouse gases not only stop climbing, but start to go down. And so they have an annual conference, and it's free, and it gives you an insight into some of the different strategies that are being developed and demonstrated through research. If you're really into science and geekiness, there's a paid portion of that conference that runs from the 5th through the 7th, but the free portion, which focuses on drawdown, is the 7th through the 9th, and you need to register using the link.
Which Marion has put in the link in the chat.
Thanks.
And I think we have a quick reminder of the upcoming Renewable Energy Summit, which is being held very soon.
And there too, there's different rates. If you're a student, you can get a really good deal. Otherwise, it takes some significant cash, but it's an excellent conference that I've been to in the past, and Susan Millar also, and highly recommend it.
Okay, and we're near the end. So I just want to let you know that we will meet again, as we meet every first Monday, unless it's like Labor Day or something. Monday, February 1st at 7 p.m. We'll be hiring, our speaker will be Maria Redmond, Director of the Office of Clean Energy and Sustainability. And she'll be speaking about the Governor's Task Force on Climate Change. Plus, I'm sure we'll have lots of good updates and information. And you can contact me if you want to help with these monthly meetings.